Hi there, my name's Davey Falcus. I'm the senior pastor at Ashton Family Church in Northumberland. I want to tell you my story. I was involved in organised crime, around bars and clubs in the city, and I had an encounter with Jesus Christ. And I want to tell you my story on how Jesus led me from Gangland to God. I was born in Carlisle in Cumbria in 1966. I was a product of an adulterous affair. My dad was already married, he had other kids. My dad was a bank robber. He was part of a network of crime families who controlled organised crime in the area. And my mum committed suicide not long after I was born. I was put up for adoption, and it was a very loving little family. Hannah, my gran, was a real prayer warrior, and she used to pray for us. Now this all changed when I was about 5 to 6 years old because a wave of death hit the family. And 3 of my grandparents died, and my adopted mother died as well. She caught TB and died. So we were left devastated. Suddenly everybody was there, there was a lot of love there, and then suddenly everything was gone. And from this day my life really changed. Life hell here for my teachers. I spent most of my school years was in the porter cabin in the middle of the school field. It was called the cooler or the hut, and I spent most of my time in there. This area here is known as the Marley Dip. I used to organise a lot of the gang fights, baseball bats, and at school I had my first encounter with a murder squad after one young boy was killed here. Teenage years I was in and out of one offenders institution or another. After a while I got into the profession of violence. I was carrying a gun by 16. I was knocking around with hitmen from Glasgow and things. I'm standing in the middle of Crothers Park Flats in the west end of Newcastle. I used to live in these flats, and these flats hold a lot of memories for me. I was once arrested here after a fight with 15 policemen in the flats here. I was once accused of hanging a man out the 8th floor of that block of flats there. And also I was once arrested 3 times over the Christmas period for aggravated burglary and for section 18 malicious wounding with an axe.
My name is Ed Critters, a former inspector in Northumberland Police. I knew David and his gang from their reputation of violence and drug trading within the Tyneside area.
My job was to look after the clubs in Newcastle city centre. I became part of the firm who controlled, the whole thing in the area, And so it was major crime, even to the point where I was approached by people from the Craze firm. The twins were in prison, but Charlie Cray was out at the time, and I was approached by their firm to join their firm. So it was like really high level sort of crime that I was involved with in that, They say that Newcastle is Europe's party capital. I'm standing outside one of the clubs that we used to run when I was involved in organised crime. We controlled most of the bars and clubs in the city. I was empty inside. I thought if I have a lot of money I'll be happy, so I would rob places and I'd get the money, and then nothing seemed to build a happiness into my life because I was trying to fill it with the wrong things: money, power, drugs, drink, casual affairs, a lot of sex, a lot of different women. That didn't bring any kind of peace into my life, I was jailed for dealing heroin at 18. I came out of prison when I was around about 21, and I met Kath, who's my wife, and got into the pub trade with Kath. We started to run pubs and that. But all the time I had this other life going on of organised crime and violence, and I had a reputation for violence in the city. I was part of the main firm. And throughout my life I met a lot of famous people. There was England footballers, people who were getting a lot of money who weren't happy with their lives. I was empty inside, and I needed something. I didn't know what it was, but it was almost like throughout my life I was searching, but I didn't know what I was searching for. I was snorting a lot of cocaine. I was smoking a lot of joints, but cocaine was my real problem. And I was probably doing about £1,000 worth a night, some nights, of partying and wining and dining and clubs and and all this sort of thing. And I was a drug addict. Cocaine was my real problem. And I was desperate, and I wanted out of this. There was a lot of drug wars going on. A lot of my friends are dead. A lot of them dead through suicide. Some of them were shot dead. Some of them were drug overdoses. And I'm lucky to be alive, and I'm only alive because God had a plan for my life. To cut a long story short, the doctors had told my wife that she was pregnant with Victoria, that Victoria might be born spina bifida. I went to a wedding, and I came out of the church, and I was looking for Kath. I couldn't see her anywhere. Then when she came out, she told us that she'd sat in there and she'd said to God if this baby was born okay, that she would bring her back here. and get her christened. And so baby was born okay. We went back for the christening there. But at the christening we invited me gran. Now there was something about seeing me gran, the light in her was playing havoc with the darkness inside of me. And I became ashamed of what I'd become because I was a monster. But I was desperately unhappy inside. One night I was in the club when a drug war at the time, and I started to hear his voice telling us, Davey, life doesn't have to be this way. It's not too late to come back. So I'm thinking, goodness me, have I got problems? You know, I've got problems. Not only am I a drug addict and alcoholic, no, I'm hearing voices as well. One night I said to Kath, look, I've got to change. I've got to get out of this. I want to get off the drugs, but I don't know how. And this voice kept challenging us and challenging us. So I decided one night we're going to pack up, leave the life, get rid of the bars, and we're going to move and just go and not tell anybody. I was part of the firm and I had to just go, and I didn't want to tell anybody. I just went, and that was it. And for over a year I went on a spiritual search. During this time I went looking, searching through Spiritism, through Buddhism, through somebody left in the house. And Jesus really was my last chance saloon. And I said, Jesus, you know, if you are really God and you can help me. I went into my bedroom. The sun was streaming in the windows. I didn't know how to pray. I got on my hands and knees. And I said, Jesus, if you are really God and you can help me, I'm yours. And it was as simple as that. And I remember just this light just increasing, coming in the window, feeling of well-being start to flow over my body. Didn't know what was happening. It was just a peace. I never felt peace like this flowing over my body. And the light was getting brighter and brighter and brighter, and I couldn't look at this light. And I had my hands over my eyes. And when I took my hands away, Jesus was standing there, just as real as I'm looking at you. And he said to me, son, your sins are forgiven. Go now and sin no more. At that moment, a 15-year drug addiction was broken instantly. More than 20 years of drinking alcohol was broken instantly. For the first time in my life I felt peace in my mind and in my heart and in my spirit. There was absolute joy inside of us. I cannot describe it. I've had every drug on the planet and there was nothing at all like this. And I was what you call born again at that moment. Jesus. I was in all the newspapers, in that local newspapers, because people couldn't believe somebody like me could be changed or become a Christian. So the story's gone all over the world. God's used it very powerfully. And I've had the privilege to lead thousands of people to Jesus. You know, that's my vocation in life. And, you know, no matter what your problems are, God can help you. He's helped me. For a year I would sit in the room and the presence of God would come and he'd teach us how to pray. And at the end of the year I realised I'd been forgiven. God loved us. From this point, God started to use us powerfully in the healing ministry. I did a healing service. The first time I prayed for somebody, there was a woman who was blind in one eye and she got the sight in her eye. I remember staying up all night praying for a little girl who'd had terminal cancer. God healed her. And he said he used to batter people with those hands. Now I'm going to use those hands to heal the sick. For a year I ran a drug rehabilitation unit in the borders. I worked on the streets. I wanted to tell people about Jesus, the love of God, the love of Jesus. And so I travelled all over the world. Sometimes I was preaching to little house groups, sometimes I was preaching in little churches or prisons, preaching in schools. Other times it would be like stadiums full of people in Africa or South America. And I went to 20 or 30 countries or something, and I've been preaching the gospel all over the world.
In 2005, I heard that David had become a Christian, and I was amazed. I went to his church, he called me forward, prayed upon me, and my diabetes was healed. I no longer take any tablets.
I'm Robert Ward, Vicar of St Luke's, Newcastle, and the leader of a group of pastors on Tyneside, and I, with a number of other guys, stick close to Davey, encouraging him in his work, and it's been just great to see him grow and the ministry grow, the book come to pass and to be published to bless so many people. Whenever Davey gets back from overseas trips, there's always great stories to hear, and his influence, his encouraging influence on the church in the northeast of England is something that we value.